Last night I actually saw something that made me wonder if I should do it as an experiment. It relates to things like racism and stuff like that with all the topics and so forth. But first, I guess I read this today. This one says, Samsung demonstrates new drone-based AI solution to optimize 5G network performance. At first, I thought it was saying Samsung was making a drone because there were those patents, if you guys remember, where they were creating something drone-esque. Haven't really heard anything about it, but according to this, it's more about, I guess, adjusting antennas. This one says, Samsung announced a successful demonstration of a new drone-based antenna configuration measurement solution for 4G and 5G networks. An engineer on the ground uses a smartphone with a remote control application to fly a camera-equipped drone and capturing photos of antennas on a building's rooftop. AI helps to verify the rotation and tilt of the antennas. The demonstration verified that Samsung's solution can speed up the task of antenna configuration measurement, just taking 15 minutes starting from flying the drone to delivery of measurements. So from watching the videos and all that, they're saying how when people install the antennas, they're doing it with, I guess, human vision, the guy putting it right in front of them. And because of that, it might not be tilt in the proper direction to give the best signal. So with this, I suppose their solution, you can fly like a drone. It looks like a regular DJI one they're using. And it'll scan everything, send it to the cloud, and then afterwards, I guess you can reconfigure the position of the antennas to give the best maximum performance. I guess it's very similar to like how they say when you fly the drone, you have to put the antennas in the right position to get the best signal. This reminds me of the story, remember, where Sony was saying for their image sensors, they're gonna have built-in AI, which basically reduces time where you'd have to send things to the cloud, process it, and bring it back, which is apparently what it does here. Imagine if you had all those solutions in place, it would be just quickly, instantaneously done. Although in the far, far future, I'm guessing you won't even need a person to put the antenna there. It's probably gonna be like a drone doing everything autonomously. And as everyone knows, basically things like racism is a huge topic, just with what happened in the US and all that. People protesting everywhere, non-stop, creating a lot of, I guess, tension between people, saying it's stupid, for one, because of the pandemic and stuff. Some people saying they need to do it because it's a time when everyone's actually listening. So it actually got me to think, because I'm actually surprised when I read comments where people say there's no such thing like as racism right now, like it's completely gone. And I mentioned before, I'm usually very cautious about calling people racist, because usually in my mind, that's to the real extreme end, as opposed to someone just being, I guess, ignorant, just being, like I said, a jerk. But it made me wonder, because I did read about the topic, how when it comes to things like racism or like passive types of, let's say, racism, which could relate to things like what people do in the future. Are they discouraged? Do people have like a bias saying, for example, people of a certain ethnicity are only good doing this? It made me wonder, for this that I saw, would people actually do anything about this if I actually made this one public? I told people before, I experience that stuff all the time. To me, it's just regular everyday life. It's hard to believe for like some people where they say, oh, what are you talking about? I don't see anything like that. Well, on this one, in YouTube, usually when people comment, Google has like these filters and so forth. Like if you post certain things, profanity or whatever, it dumps it into like a spam folder. And that's apparently what happened in this comment here that happened recently. And in my opinion, I would consider this probably racist, but it makes me wonder, what do other people think and what would they actually do? So here's the comment. This guy says, "You are an effing moron. What, if anything, do you know about aviation or airframes? Stick to your K-pop shit, pal. Let the professionals deal with the plane crashes." So for context, this is that video, if you guys remember, about that snowbird that crashed here in BC. And I basically just showed what people were showing, like in social media, about the actual event occurring, where someone ejected from the seats and all that. So yeah, I guess this guy, for some reason, maybe he hates drones or something like that, he just feels a person like me should stop talking about it. But it's that comment, for example, like the K-pop and all that, it's actually so wrong in so many levels, like technically speaking. Considering the context of the video, how I presented it, and his comment, for example, like that K-pop stuff, I would personally consider this person racist. What would someone on the outside consider? Do you think that's, I don't know, it's just like a regular person like hating on someone for whatever reason? So it made me wonder, because this thing is basically registered as spam, it's not in the public, if I actually made this public, is there anyone who would actually say, debate with this guy or dive into his mind on his, I guess you could say, racist personality? And I'd be interested in seeing, how do people actually deal with this when there's a case right in front of you where someone is being like, I don't know, you can call it racist, prejudice, or whatever. Do you sit there on the sideline and go, oh well, or do you actually do something about it? It makes me curious, would actually anyone debate this guy, so to speak. You know how I debate people like in these situations. I do everything with facts and so forth, but with this context of like protests and people often saying there's no such thing as racism, I think this is an example where this is the type of stuff that a person like me sees all the time, and you can't blame, in my opinion, people wanting to do these mass protests all of a sudden, because it just happens all the time and most people, they just throw it under the rug. Because I think this relates, for example, to that, I would say, quote, systemic racism, because again, I really am cautious before calling things racist. It could just be prejudice. But like, even if you look at things like, for example, I don't know, let's just take Transport Canada, for example. I guarantee right now, I'll post it up. If I look at everyone that's in charge, I highly doubt there's going to be like an East Asian person there. You could say, for example, it's just, well, no one's interested in it. That's why there's no, like, just say like an East Asian there. But from my personal experience, it really does come down to stuff like this. You might think it's not very common, but from my experience, this stereotype, or whatever you want to call it, racism, is actually out there pretty frequently. So you can imagine people that grow up, like I said, with an Asian person, they'll say, you're only good for computers and tech. Everything else you must be horrible at, no knowledge, or etc. Imagine that bias transferring on in these cases when people do like the hiring and so forth. I mean, is it a surprise? Like, it'll look like whatever it is, like currently? To me, it's all about perspectives. Like for many, if you just can't see why there's so many people so, I guess, fired up about that issue right now, this is why in many cases, because it happens all the time, just from my personal opinion, and usually nothing gets done about it. Same thing with, like I said, it's the same thing if you think about it with like drones and stuff. Like I said, it's kind of discriminating the way they're doing it. I mean, imagine they had like the same frustration. Everyone now is saying, that's it, we're doing something about this. So if anyone's willing to, quote, debate with this person, just let me know, because I think it'll be interesting. There's no guarantee he'll actually respond. I don't know if he'll just like delete his own comment or whatever, but again, it'd be interesting to see from the outside if whether or not topics like this just make people uncomfortable, where they don't do anything, or at the same time, can you actually like change someone like that afterwards? Like with those current protests, it's one thing in my opinion to say, hey, you think it's stupid that they're blocking bridges and stuff like that. And I think it's another thing to say the racism and stuff just doesn't exist, like there's no problem. Like just from my personal experience, that's not true at all. I think for me, I was just fortunate, like I said, I learned really early on that people can change in that way if you enlighten them, I suppose. Because in my situation, it was kind of, I guess, very storybook-like. It was like a Caucasian teacher coming up to me and thanking me for opening his eyes, because he did have like those stereotypes and bias before, saying, I thought an Asian could never do stuff like this. And he said, thank you for opening my eyes. So to me, there is a way. It smells like trees getting chopped, so to speak. Too late today? It's a dog. Alright, see you guys later.